Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, including Farhan Lalji, standing by, brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. Sean from the Hat. You guys seem off today. I think Taka needs to babysit you guys and see if you're eating and sleeping well before your shows. Maybe this will help as we bring in Farhan Lalji. And for people who aren't aware of the story that broke yesterday, SFU has cut its men's football program, a program that's been around since 1965. And Farhan's been all over this. He joins us now. Farhan, thanks for doing this. Am I okay asking you how are you doing?
You know, I'm so upset. Like I got to put Crown in my Donnie and Dolly mug today, right?
Wow.
Like that's what's got to happen. That's what's got to happen. Like I gotta take a few of these because this is just so disappointing on so many levels. A lot of anger, a lot of emotion, a lot of questions. None of it makes any sense. It doesn't make sense if they're being truthful, because they keep telling us it's not about the money. It's about not having a place to play, but there are options. They just haven't been fully pursued yet. And from the people that I've spoken to in and around those options, had they been pursued, they might have been amenable, right? And we tell our student athletes to push to the end, to try, to play till the final whistle, till there's 1 second left in the clock. And it's like we punted at the start of the fourth quarter here, right? So the way it's gone down makes you think no matter what their comments are that it's not about money, it has to be about money. But it would just be nice if there was some transparency in this process. And until there is, we're just going to keep fighting.
So they get booted out of the Lone Star Conference, which is Texas-based. Farhan, from what you know, did anybody approach U Sports about a return to Canadian college football or NCAA Division III? Because that would have made a lot of sense.
Yeah, you know, Division III isn't going to be an option because the entire athletic department has to do that, right? And because Division III is a non-scholarship level, it certainly doesn't fit in with the mission of SFU athletics at all, right? So that doesn't work. Could the NAIA have been a possibility? And they used to play in the NAIA for really the bulk of SFU's athletic existence, certainly in the late part of the last century. And U Sports, yeah, you're right. And there hasn't been due diligence done here. There's been a couple of cursory calls made. So I can't sit there and say they've never contacted U Sports. But in terms of meaningful engagement and dialogue and lobbying and going through the process of lobbying Canada West and talking to the coaches and the athletic directors, that hasn't happened. There's been a couple of cursory calls made. One was made like literally 2 days before the announcement. It almost felt like they were trying to check off a box, so that they could say they made the call. Like you could tell they didn't want to explore this because there's a bigger agenda at play here. And every time that question gets asked to the admin, whether it's from me or players or other stakeholders, and they didn't engage any stakeholders until it was over, we just keep hearing that it's really complicated. And rather than creating uncertainty, we just wanted to have the athletes get a chance to move on. Pure nonsense, pure lack of vision, direction, and leadership on every level. They needed to go right to the end. Force those people to say no, because I'll tell you what, Donnie, they wouldn't have. Nobody wants to see another college football program go down in this country. They would not have said no.
Farhan, when UBC's football team was in trouble, they had Alumni step up and pour a lot of money into it. Is that a possibility here or not?
Well, first of all, like it's not about the money, right, Rick? Yeah. You know, that's what we're told. So, you know, that ask certainly hasn't been made. We know that recently in the last couple of weeks, they've stopped taking any donations from SFU. And could SFU, the SFU alumni is a passionate, hardworking group. But, you know, the reality is there aren't as many big hitters financially because this is a school that doesn't, like, it's a great school and it's you know, #1 comprehensive university in Canada and all of that, but no law school. No medical schools. Like you don't have as many of those graduate schools, so you don't necessarily have that type of alumni, right? And so we've got a lot of hardworking, committed group, but not necessarily, two guys that could just write, a $500,000 check each and call it a day. Like we just don't have that. So do I think this process has the ability to engage alumni like never before and get more dollars? Sure. But boy, it would have been nice to have had that at the front end. And, you talk about what happened at UBC, there are some similarities and similar people involved from that situation to this situation, right? So, it does make you wonder. So it's definitely a real challenge. But, I'll tell you this, the alumni is hot. Like, they are hot. I mean, there are people that are willing to go to great lengths here to make sure that they're noticed and that their voices are felt and that this issue doesn't go away. So, and some of that could get resolved in the courts, right? Like, it's willing to go that far. So I don't think this is going to end as quietly as maybe the admin had hoped it was going to end.
Okay, I'll never forget Don Matthews saying the team with the best Canadians wins the Grey Cup. So now go to the CFL for me. What reaction from the CFL can you tell us if you've talked to any of the BC Lions? Every bloodline for a CFL team goes through the Canadian draft. They just took out a university for them. What's the reaction from the Lions and the CFL?
Disappointment, and anger, right? Because when you talk about SFU, they've had by far the most number of players drafted, the most number of players to have played in the Canadian Football League, like by a large number. And that's from a program that struggled the last few years, right? So, like, the history was just so good that they've been so good to the Canadian Football League. Randy Ambrosie's put out a statement. The Lions have put out a statement. I'm having discussions with them later on today. There's a lot of stakeholders here. And it's just, not only are the teams upset, but this is bad for the entire football ecosystem, right? Like, people that normally would be out there and say, "Oh, great, we don't have one less school to compete with in recruiting. We're gonna, we're gonna benefit from this." Nobody believes that, right? Because if no football program in the country, maybe Laval, I'm not sure, but no college football program in the country is profitable. So all of them kind of, operate on a bit of a knife's edge here. And if one administration makes that decision, it's easier for the next administration to make the same decision. And it's hard to bring this stuff back. And a lot of programs around the country have been through this. And sometimes it galvanizes the community and the alumni, and it makes the support that much stronger. And maybe that's how this turns out here, and that a phoenix rises from the ashes. But the entire football ecosystem, BC high school football, right? There's one of two programs gone. There's less place for kids in this country to play, less place for kids in this province to play. It hurts the entire sport top to bottom. This is not just about SFU.
Farhan, I found it hard to believe if yourself, Glenn Suter, Doug Brown, I know he didn't go to the school, but Randy Ambrosie from the CFL in general, other significant SFU alumni, if you didn't all get together and approach U Sports and say something to them and start a camp, I have a hard time you wouldn't be listened to. What's the next step?
Well, there's two steps, right? There's two tracks here. One is the 2023 season, and then big picture kind of comes after that. Maybe you can operate on those simultaneously, and that probably is going to happen because, we've got some people that have those connections with U Sports in Canada West that are certainly going to attempt to use them. But we got to get through the 2023 season, because what was heartless and unconscionable about this decision is that they made it immediately. They were on the schedule. Scholarships have been committed to, coaching salaries has been committed to, like, they were budgeted to play this year, and yet they cut it immediately, which tells you this is all about the money, no matter how much they want to lie to you. The fact that they did it this way, they could have waited until December, let them play their full season, even if you told them it was going to be the last season, and put them into the right recruiting window, right? So those are the two things. We've got to battle to get 2023 played, and that might be a battle that gets waged in the courts, right? Like, it could go there. And the other side of it is that then after that, you've got to look at the big picture and the future of the program. And I agree with you. The number of stakeholders across the country that have an interest in university football, period, I have a hard time believing that Canada West wouldn't listen. And if Canada West supported this, U Sports, I don't believe would get in the way of it, right? So, and there was bad blood 12 years ago when SFU left, and I think a lot of the people in leadership positions then are no longer involved. So I think the tenor would be a little bit different, but you're right. They would listen, but first things first, let's get 2023 back on the books, and then let's see what we can do big picture after that.
Okay, France, so when you say let's get 2023 back on the books, you mean as part of the Lone Star Conference or somewhere else?
No, in the Lone Star, because we were in the schedule, right? SFU was not, like, the affiliate relationship was not going to be renewed after 2023. So we're on the Lone Star schedule. And, and again, it had been budgeted. These guys just finished spring ball. They were allowed to recruit. 25 kids turned down other opportunities to go play at SFU this fall for the first time, leaving high school programs, right? Like the fact that everything has been allowed to continue, business as usual. They had their spring scrimmage a week ago. These guys were expecting a meeting to talk about the off-season program, and bam, you're dead, right? Like it's craziness the way this has gone down. So yeah, they 2023. Those schools aren't going to be able to fill those games in Texas at this stage. But they could just say, forget it. We're not. We've canceled our travel, and we got to get to them before all of that happens, right?
I have a hard time believing you can't come up with $500,000.
Well, I keep doing appearances on your show, and that's
yeah, you're halfway there. Yeah,
I'm halfway there.
By the way, I listed off all those SFU alumni. I did mention Julio, so I'll mention Julio now.
Julio, the only guy who in the profile shot whose butt was bigger than that of his offensive lineman.
Oh
my goodness! Wow, wow.
I remember Julio as a slim, trim quarterback back in the day. Take a look at those pictures again.
You remember him as a quarterback back in the day?
Yeah. Back in the day.
Trim. Hey, Julio, if you're listening, I love you, brother.
Farhan, thanks for this, and all the best. In all seriousness, all the best with this. Everybody's upset, and we hope there are better days ahead.
Yeah, Lauren Davies right now would be rolling in his grave, and I hope we can get some movement here, and hopefully the next time I do the show next week, we've got some good news.
Good. Well, we'll look forward to that. Farhan, thanks so much.
Take care, guys.
You bet. Farhan Lalji, as a few cuts, it's a men's football program.